Score more with the college-branded Venmo debit card and earn up to 5% cash back with Venmo Stash. Got paid back? With the Venmo debit card, you can instantly access your balance and spend on what you want, like game day snacks, gear, tickets, and more. The more you do, the more cash back you can earn. Plus, there's no monthly fee or minimum balance. Sign up now at Venmo.com/collegecard. The Venmo MasterCard is issued by the Bancorp Bank N.A. Select schools available. Venmo Stash terms and exclusions apply at venmo.me/stash terms. Max $100 cash back per month.
So good, so good, so good.
New spring arrivals are at Nordstrom Rack stores now. Get ready to save big with up to 60% off Rag & Bone, Marc Jacobs, Free People, and more.
How did I not know Rack has Adidas?
Because there's always something new.
Join the Nordy Club to unlock exclusive discounts, shop new arrivals first, and more. Plus, buy online and pick up at your favorite Rack store for free. Great brands, great prices. That's why you Rack.
For the News and Observer, I'm Dawn Vaughan, Capitol Bureau Chief and host of Under the Dome. I'm here at the North Carolina Legislative Building on this Monday, October 20th, with my colleague Kyle Ingram, as the General Assembly is back in town again for just a few days and focused on drawing a new congressional map to give Republicans the advantage. We are recording this in the afternoon on Monday. There is a Senate Election Committee meeting this morning, Kyle, that you covered. So tell people what's the main change of the maps and how did this all go down in committee today?
Yes. So as we record this, the map just passed through the Senate Elections Committee entirely along party lines, with Republicans getting it through. There was about 45 minutes of public comment and every single speaker was against the map. What we're looking at now is a new congressional map that will most likely result in Republicans winning 11 out of North Carolina's 14 congressional seats. Now, this is only a net gain of 1 for Republicans because the map that was approved in 2023 was already heavily created in their favor. So in 2024, that resulted in Republicans winning 10 of the 14 seats. This new map redraws the first congressional district, which is in the northeastern part of the state, to make a more favorable district for Republicans and would likely oust Democrat Dawn Davis, who is representing Snow Hill in Congress.
So tell us more about Davis. He was in the state Senate before he ran for Congress. It's been, a pretty tough district, and it was looking like a tough race, this coming year, even before this.
Yeah, so when Republicans redrew the first district in 2023, they already made it very competitive. It was sort of anyone's game, and Davis won it by, I believe, just shy of 2 points against Lori Buckout. He's been more of a moderate Democrat in Congress. He's broken with the party a few times, but Republicans have been very eager to get him out of this seat and increase the Republican delegation in the state.
So how is it? What's legal here in the factor of redrawing a map? Two districts, but just basically, with the goal of one person. What's the history here? How do we get here, basically, where this is happening?
Well, traditionally, redistricting is only supposed to happen every 10 years after the census. You take into account any population changes, and that's how you make the new maps. But North Carolina has never really followed this rule. In fact, if this map that we're currently discussing is enacted, this will be the 6th congressional map that the state has had in 5 years.
That's a lot of maps.
Yeah. So what has happened in our state is that both under Democratic rule before 2010, when Democrats controlled the legislature, and under Republican rule more recently, the lawmakers have drawn maps to benefit their own party, and those have often in previous years been struck down as unconstitutional gerrymanders, and the court has forced the legislature to draw new districts. But a lot of the legal pathways around gerrymandering have changed significantly in recent years. So both the United States Supreme Court and the North Carolina Supreme Court have ruled that partisan gerrymandering, so the drawing of districts to benefit your own party, they've said that this is a political question that cannot be addressed by the courts. A court can't strike a map down for being gerrymandered to favor one party. So this has given lawmakers free rein to draw the maps that are best for them. I mean, you saw today in committee, Senator Ralph Heiss, who said he drew the map, was very explicit about saying we drew this to give Republicans another seat so that we can try to block Democrats from taking power in 2026. They can't really be sued for that anymore. So that leaves the only real legal pathway to challenging a map as racial gerrymandering, to say that a map illegally dilutes the voting power of a sizable block of minority voters. And even that could be a narrowing pathway, because the United States Supreme Court is currently considering a case out of Louisiana that could gut Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, which is usually the underlying basis for any racial gerrymandering claims.
So this is kind of the Republican criticism of the Democrats' criticism is, using that phrase "sue till blue," which is what they're saying really, as far as that there be some sort of legal action after each of these when they have the power to at least, draw the map initially versus where it changes.
Yeah, I mean, these maps have always been litigated, and the current congressional map that we have that resulted in the 10-4 split is also already being challenged in federal court for alleged racial gerrymandering. There was a trial in that case over the summer, and we're still waiting on a judge to release a ruling in that. So, I mean, it could be the case, however, potentially unlikely, that while they're in the process of passing this new map that's more favorable to Republicans, the current map gets struck down by a federal judge.
Democratic Governor Josh Stein today, again, I've said we're recording this on Monday, the 20th. He called it a cynical power grab, this move. And as he and other Democrats have criticized Republicans for using these legislative days to make a new map as opposed to the very late budget, which we'll talk about later in the show. Is it? I guess the fact that Senate Leader Phil Berger and House Speaker Dustin Hall said they're doing this because Trump told them to, right? And you wrote that story initially, and that came out.
Yeah, so North Carolina is adding itself to the growing list of Republican-led states who are redrawing their maps at President Trump's request to help Republicans ahead of the 2026 midterm. So this all started with Texas, which redrew its map to give Republicans 5 additional seats. Then California announced it would retaliate by redrawing its map to give 5 Democrats more seats. So we're just one seat in the national math that's playing out over 2026.
Okay, we'll see how the rest of the week shapes up. There's a long history of redistricting and gerrymandering in North Carolina. In this episode's description and our Under the Dome newsletter this morning, you'll find links to a 2021 podcast series from former NNO investigative reporter Tyler Dukes called Monster. And here's a clip from that first episode.
Picture for just a minute the sky on a clear night and all the stars you can see. Then beyond that, what we can't see, all the suns too far away for our eyes to detect, and all their orbiting planets. That number is vast. It's enough to make you feel pretty small. But that's nothing. State lawmakers at least once every 10 years deal with a much more colossal figure. The number of ways they can combine all the bits and pieces of North Carolina together to form an electoral map. That's redistricting. There are more of those combinations than planets in our galaxy. More, in fact, than atoms in the universe. That's true whether it's 14 members of Congress, 120 members of the North Carolina House, or 50 members of the state Senate. Facing all that choice, more options than stars in the sky, and you can get a little lost. But redistricting has to happen. The Constitution says so. So where do you start? Well, with a set of rules. And some of those rules, more than others, are meant to be broken.
We've talked about this being an issue for years when that series came out about gerrymandering. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about what else is going on at the legislature this week. We'll be right back.
It's tax season, and at LifeLock, we know you're tired of numbers. But here's a big one you need to hear. Billions. That's the amount of money in refunds the IRS has flagged for possible identity fraud. Now here's another big number, 100 million. That's how many data points LifeLock monitors every second. If your identity is stolen, we'll fix it guaranteed. One last big number, save up to 40% your first year. Visit lifelock.com/podcast for the threats you can't control. Terms apply.
It's crunch time at work and you need to bring wings to your workday. Visit redbull.com/gettingitdone and answer a couple questions about your work style to get a Spotify customized playlist tuned to your productivity. Plus, score a can of Red Bull on us while you go from to-do to done. And remember, Red Bull gives you wings. Supplies are limited. Terms apply. Visit the website for more information.
You're listening to Under the Dome. I'm Capitol Bureau Chief Dawn Vaughan here with Kyle Ingram. The first half of the show, we talked about maps. Anything else people should know as they're following the news the rest of this week about it?
Well, before Republicans officially announced that they would be drawing a new congressional map this year, there were some claims out there that the state Senate leader, Phil Berger, would be agreeing to draw this map for President Trump in exchange for an endorsement in his primary campaign against Rockingham Sheriff Sam Page. So Phil Berger has been in charge of the Senate here for a very long time. He's facing a very heated primary challenge in his home county of Rockingham. And there was some reporting out there that he would be doing this redistricting effort in exchange for that endorsement. He's denied any claims of that. He said he didn't have any contact with the White House about anything of that matter. But in denying it a few weeks ago, he did say at that time that the state was open to redrawing its map, and now they have gone on to do so.
Okay. So how is this going to play out for people listening to this Tuesday morning? We're looking at Senate votes on Monday, which will, happen soon after we wrap this recording. And then what else is what's happening next? What's the House going to do?
So the House has announced committee hearings for both the Select Committee on Redistricting and the Rules Committee on Tuesday. And those are the last steps it would take before going to a floor vote. It's not clear at this point whether they'll go directly to a floor vote on Tuesday or wait till possibly Wednesday morning. But it looks like, if nothing changes, we're going to have these maps enacted quite soon. And as listeners may know, in North Carolina, the governor is prohibited from vetoing electoral maps. So once this passes both chambers of the legislature, it becomes law automatically.
Well, I want to ask you about that, though. Tell me why you wrote about that.
So it is actually a function of our state constitution. So North Carolina was the last state in the country to give its governor the power of a veto. We have a very weak governorship in North Carolina, and several decades ago, a state senator by the name of Roy Cooper
I've heard of them before.
sponsored a bill to give the veto power to the governor. But in Roy Cooper's bill, he specified that electoral maps would be exempt from the veto. And then, of course, Roy Cooper would become governor and serve 2 terms and constantly have his veto overturned by the legislature.
And he is now running for U.S. Senate. Moving over to the state Senate, some news that just came out over the weekend. State Senator Norm Sanderson, a Republican from Eastern North Carolina, was arrested and charged with driving while impaired on Saturday evening, according to Wake County records. He, Sunday morning, had already issued a statement saying that he made a quote, regrettable mistake, and I take responsibility for my actions. And Sanderson apologized to his, quote, constituents, my colleagues, my family for letting them down. I commend the State Highway Patrol and Wake County Sheriff's Office for their professionalism during the incident. He said Governor Stein was asked about this during a presser he had on Monday, and Stein called the charges serious and exceptionally concerning. Did not call for any further action. Stein just said we need to let the legal process play out. So that's the backdrop of what else is going on at the legislative building on Monday. The other thing to note is it's months very late, state budget again. The latest budget, as far as my recent memory, at least since I've been covering things in the building, is that there was a later budget in November a few years ago. And that was, as we were just talking about Roy Cooper, when Cooper was governor, and the negotiations between Cooper and the Republican-controlled legislature. This time, the negotiations are between Senate Leader Phil Berger and House Speaker Dustin Hall and their top budget chairs of coming to some sort of comprehensive budget agreement, which is very unlikely to happen this week. May not happen in November. We could see another mini budget. There's already been a couple of those that have been sent to Stein that he signed. And there could be one with some sort of Medicaid funding because of things changing October 1st, the Stein administration, as far as Medicaid funding. Again, this is not Medicaid expansion, which is the big federal issue, of course, also a state issue. This is Medicaid rebase and just about general funding through this coming year. So that's something else that we're watching for at the legislature. Another thing that could happen, Representative Cecil Brockman, the House Democrat who faces several very serious sex crime charges, is in, the last time we contacted the Guilford County Sheriff's Office, he's in the jail at High Point. Kyle and I have both covered this, our whole team has. And as far as where things stand now, Brockman, as of Monday afternoon, has not resigned. He can be removed. There's a complicated process for that. Governor Stein and other Democrats have said that he should be removed if he doesn't resign. And basically that would be up to the House. There's a history here. You can find our coverage at newsobserver.com. I wrote about like the actual how does this play out? And it's there is due process involved, so it would take a while. It seems like people might be waiting for him just to resign, but he hasn't done it yet. So if he doesn't, then they can start that process for removing him. And they have removed lawmakers before.
And in the event that he is removed or that he resigns his seat, the process for replacing him would be that the Democratic Party of the county which he represents would suggest a replacement. Is that true?
Yeah, there's like a committee within it that gets to make that decision, and then it goes to the governor, and then the governor appoints the same way. Representative Lowry left for a job in D.C., and then his brother, the other Lowry, is going to be So it's a pretty quick process. Once somebody resigns, you can swear them in at the next voting session,
and the party stays the same.
Right. So there's not as much any sort of shift in that, just the person. Okay, so we're almost out of time and have to get up to the Senate here soon. We're recording in the press room in this little audio closet that all the reporters use, just to give you all some behind the scenes of our process here. So let's move on to our picks for Headliner of the Week. I'll go first. On Sunday, I went to the state fair. I've gone every year since I've lived here, which has been about 20 years now. My favorite things are, I miss the rabbit barn. They should bring back the rabbit barn, but there are some rabbits if you need to see them in like the little children's barnyard. If you walk through that, you get to see some with the shorter line that's across in the village of yesteryear, other than all the cows and everything else, and all of the other buildings and the expo center and everything. And so I like seeing all the animals, and the food is pretty good. I tried new food this year. It was like a steak tips and mashed potatoes. It's over kind of near the waterfall stage, Dorton Arena, if you guys are looking for food recommendations. I can't remember what it's called now, of course, but so anyway, my headliner is the state fair, which showcases all the agriculture in the state and everything. Kyle, what's your headliner?
Well, I was also at the state fair on Sunday, though I somehow did not run into Dawn. And I guess I will narrow my headliner to say that I really appreciated trying the new Cheerwine Dream drink that they had at the fair. So it was sort of comes in like a collectible cup, and it's sort of like a Cheerwine float. Very good. And I also love seeing the really, really big pumpkin that won the pumpkin growing contest or whatever. It's just this massive white pumpkin.
I did see that, all the pumpkins, all of the gourds, and our Instagram, there's a video of interviews with the process of all of that. That's pretty cool. For all the farmers, since it is pumpkin season and everything. There's always, I've noticed every year, there's always one sort of prize from the games that everybody's carrying around. This year, I saw a whole bunch of Highland cow stuffed animals, so maybe I'll get one of those. My family and I tried to win a couple of games, but could not get the cow. Anyway, so I hope you all have fun at the state fair, which is here through Sunday. We'll have much more for you in the News Observer about everything else that happens in the House and Senate this week. For Kyle Ingram, producer Laura Brache, I'm Dawn Vaughan. Thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.
For more from our politics team, subscribe to the News and Observer at newsobserver.com/subscribe. Sign up for our political newsletter, also called Under the Dome, at newsobserver.com/newsletters. Thanks for listening.